Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to this week's edition of War of Words. We're talking about halal meat, how halal is our halal meat, indeed how halal is our halal food altogether. There's one level of the halal debate which we've started with my guests tonight, which is clearly the pork DNA contamination. But we're going to go on to general meat contamination perhaps, and then as the show progresses I think we're going to start looking at what the definition of halal is per se in terms of our own view of halal beyond the idea of just the meat and its contamination or how it's cut, because halal is a much bigger issue than simply looking at the way you sacrifice the animals that give their lives for us to stay nourished. I have with me Awal Fusaini, who is effectively a meat inspector.
That's correct.
Yeah, and I mean, what does that involve, meat inspection? What is your job involve?
Well, it involves, in the halal perspective, it involves actually looking at sources of contamination of the meat and looking at more on meat quality. And when it comes to, say, poultry, we now trying to extend it to involve more of animal welfare, because it looks like the halal market or the halal concept is concentrated on slaughter instead of other aspects of the meat, which we must broaden our scope to encompass.
Well, we are going to come on to that, and I hinted at it slightly earlier, but in terms of your inspection of meat such as the one that HFA was questioned about in terms of the pork contamination.
Okay.
I'm sure there are other halal food authorities, and this is perhaps one of the problems, that there are, how many halal food authority setups are there, and how can we trust all the halal food authorities that are out there? What are their rules, regulations, what are their procedures? These are all questions in the public's mind, and what's the government's connection with the halal food authority and various others? What are the governmental precedents or connections to this?
Well, in the UK, I would say there is a lot of government influence in the halal market. What I think we should be looking at is trying to standardize our procedures, which might take us a long time to come to that point. Everybody seems to operate on different standards, though we all aim at producing halal of the highest quality. So in my opinion, though everybody has got different standards, we need to come together. I know it's not going to be very easy. We need to come together to standardize our operations so that we will all operate on the same principles.
Well, Saqib, ये जो इशू है कि मीट प्रोडक्शन जो हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो भी मर्जी है वो आ सकती है इस फील्ड में. अगर मैं चाहूँ तो मैं हलाल फूड अथॉरिटी सेट कर सकता हूँ, लेकिन कोई गवर्नमेंटल कोई कम बैक नहीं है इसमें. आप लोगों ने तो ओरिजिनली ये काफ़ी अरसा पहले शुरू किया था सिलसिला. अभी 6-7 ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं. क्या हम ट्रस्ट कर सकते हैं इन ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को?
देखिए, जैसे कि हम लोगों ने जब काम शुरू किया 1994 में, तो उस वक्त हलाल सर्टिफिकेशन का कॉन्सेप्ट यूके में था ही नहीं. हमारे जो ट्रस्टीज़ थे, फाउंडिंग मेंबर्स थे, उन्होंने ये शुरू किया तो उनको बहुत अप्रिशिएट किया गया. लेकिन उस वक्त भी बात सिर्फ मीट तक ही महदूद थी, क्योंकि लोग समझते थे कि भाई हलाल की बात है तो सिर्फ मीट की बात है. फिर जब मीट आगे बढ़ा, फिर फूड स्टफ्स शुरू हुए, फिर लोगों में अवेयरनेस आना शुरू हुई, फिर लोगों ने ये समझना शुरू कर दिया कि भाई ये तो एक समझ लें कमर्शियल बिजनेस है. तो फिर लोग इसमें आना शुरू हो गए, लेकिन विदाउट कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स, विदाउट कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग द प्रिंसिपल्स अंडरलाइंग, हर इंसान ये नहीं कर सकता. कहने को तो आप कर लेंगे, लेकिन काफ़ी सारे ऐसे इंडिविजुअल्स हैं जिन्होंने कोशिश की और कर भी रहे हैं, लेकिन वो ज़्यादा आगे तक नहीं जा पाएंगे. इसलिए कि हलाल को दूर से आप देखते हैं तो लगता है कि सिर्फ एक ट्रेड बन के रह गया, बट दिस इज़ नॉट द केस. इट अंडरलाइज लॉट ऑफ प्रोसीजर्स, लॉट ऑफ एफर्ट इनटू इट. और जो लोग भी ये सोचते हैं कि हम आ जाएंगे, इट्स नॉट दैट ईजी, इट्स नॉट द कप ऑफ टी. तो इसमें अब आ गई हैं, आप 6-7 अथॉरिटीज़ की बात कर रहे हैं, सबके स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं, दे ऑल वर्क हार्ड. वी आर ऑल ट्राइंग टू रीच द सेम गोल, टू सर्व द उम्मा, टू ब्रिंग अबाउट द बेस्ट पॉसिबल ऑथेंटिकेटेड हलाल फूड्स. लेकिन उसमें क्या होता है कि कभी कभार सप्लाई चेन में एरर्स होते हैं ऑन द पार्ट ऑफ सप्लायर्स, ऑन द पार्ट ऑफ मैन्युफैक्चरर्स, और कभी ये भी होता है कि जो बीच में ऑपरेटिव्स होते हैं वो मैस अबाउट करते हैं. तो जैसे कि निज़ार साहब ने भी कहा था कि हमें केयर की ज़रूरत है, केयरफुल रहना पड़ेगा, विजिलेंट होना पड़ेगा। कम्युनिटी क्या करती है कि सारा के सारा बर्डन सर्टिफायर पे डाल दिया कि भाई सर्टिफायर ने सर्टिफाई किया हुआ है, लेकिन हम लोग भरोसा कर जाते हैं अपने ही लोगों पे कि जो हमें बेचते हैं वो मीट। हमें उन पे नज़र रखनी चाहिए। वी हैव टू बी विजिलेंट, वी हैव टू प्ले आवर रोल एज वेल टू इन्वेस्टिगेट फर्दर। हम लोग सिर्फ और सिर्फ ये देख लेते हैं कि भाई हमारे अब्दुल सत्तार साहब जो बेच रहे हैं उन्होंने कह दिया हलाल है तो हलाल है, और हम लोग ये नहीं सोचते कि टेस्को में भी इतना बड़ा बैनर लगा हुआ है हलाल का, वो हलाल नहीं है। हमें थोड़ा देखना चाहिए, हमें अपने आप को एजुकेट करने की ज़रूरत है। ट्रस्ट होना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये काम आप ट्रस्ट के बगैर नहीं कर सकते। इफ़ यू लूज़ द ट्रस्ट यू कैन नेवर डू दैट, यू कैन नेवर ईट हलाल फूड। क्योंकि हमने ये देखा है कि नाउ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट कंटेमिनेशन लेवल एट DNA, 0.1% सेंसिटिविटी लेवल नाउ वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट। इट कैन नॉट बी डिटेक्टेड बाय नेकेड आई। आप अगर 24 घंटे भी एक अपना इंस्पेक्टर भी खड़ा कर देंगे, कंटेमिनेशन को एक इंसान डिटेक्ट नहीं कर सकता। क्योंकि कंटेमिनेशन जो हम जिस लेवल की बात कर रहे हैं 0.1% की, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ PCR रिएक्शन टेस्टिंग से ही पॉसिबल है। वो आम आदमी ऐसे स्वैब टेस्ट करके नहीं पता चल सकता, उसको देखने से नहीं पता चल सकता। तो जहाँ तक हम तमाम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कोशिश कर रही हैं, हमारे कुछ जो हमारे मेंबर्स ऑफ कम्युनिटी हैं, पब्लिक है, उनको भी थोड़ा अपना रोल प्ले करना चाहिए कि वो इन्वेस्टिगेट करें। कहीं उनको लगे कि भाई ये तो मिसयूज़ हो रहा है लोगों का, या ये सप्लायर या ये हमारा जो बुचर है ये या कोई भी ऐसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन सप्लाई नहीं कर रही हलाल बट दे आर क्लेमिंग टू बी हलाल, फ़ौरन उसको रिपोर्ट करें। फ़ौरन हमें HFA को फ़ोन करें, हमें ईमेल भेजें। हमारी और भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, हलाल अथॉरिटी बोर्ड है, हलाल मॉनिटरिंग कमेटी है, हम सब मिल के काम करना चाहते हैं। सबको आप कांटेक्ट करें, रिपोर्ट द ऑफेंस, रिपोर्ट द एलिजिड ऑफेंस, और रिपोर्ट द पोटेंशियली hazardous situation, so that we can all work together. Trading standards are there to help us. People are there to help us. We have signed many declarations in opposition of many culprits. So करना हमें सबको मिलके कर पड़ेगा।
मुझे लगता है कि actually the thing is, Nizar, how do you guarantee across the chain to be able to monitor this? It seems to me that a lot of resources would have to be put in. Testing costs money. If you've got inspectors and they're going to have to go out to each one of these places, each one of these wholesalers, how many of these wholesalers are there? और इन wholesalers को किस तरीके से हम वो inspect करेंगे? अगर resources नहीं है, if you can't afford an army of inspectors, how are we going to deal with this?
Well, first of all, we're in a big dilemma actually as Muslims. There is simply no definition of halal. Let's not.
That is protected by law. There is no protection.
There is no protection at all. The trading standard officers can prosecute for breach of labeling, for breach of misdescription, mistrading, and so on. But when it comes to halal, they lift their hands off and say, "That's your problem. You go and decide as a community what halal means." And up to date, there is no definition of halal. So therefore, there is chaos. And when you got chaos, there are people who will take actually whatever route they want to describe, oh, well, I think halal is halal, I think is halal, I think that is halal. Well, knowing as we do, the Muslim denominations as we are, we can't even decide tomorrow is Eid because we can't see the chand, and therefore we fight about it. You think we will ever come to a definition of halal? I made numerous plea to the government to help us, numerous, for a long, long time. The government will keep on telling us that this is a community matters, we cannot interfere. But you know, in Australia, exactly happened like that. In Australia, the government took over to decide they're going to set up the detailed standards and so on, what halal should be and what halal inspection should be and so on and so on. Now, if we can do something like that, that's fine. We can get somewhere. And if we can't, then we got to find another way out. The other way out is to have a big halal commission, if you like, with personnel from all denominations who will control the standards, if you like. So if I want to be a certifier, I will have to get my permission, if you like, my license from that commission. Now, I tried this about 5 years ago. People just refused to sign. I don't know, you're doing it. Okay, this is for the Muslim community, we are doing it. So we can have standardization of things. All right, so that is not possible. What else can we do? Say, for instance, Halal Food Authority, Saki will say to me, okay, we cooperate. We'll say, okay, Nizar, you go and inspect our place here. Help us. You go and inspect that. And I'll say to Saqib exactly like that, okay, that's excellent. You do mine here. And see what we can actually, intercooperation between ourselves sort of thing.
Yeah,
I
well,
just hope that we will have one day that kind of utopia, that we will trust each other, we'll harmonize that definition of halal.
Exactly.
We will come to a standard, if you like, halal standard will relate to not only meat, but everything that is eatable, everything in drinks, anything in pharmaceutical, anything in cosmetics and so on. We got a huge range of things that we call it halal, but we know just a little bit. To do insult to injury, the public out there knows very little about what is halal. They trust us. This is the biggest mistake they do. They should challenge us. They should challenge anybody, even the shopkeeper down there. Tell me why this is halal. I want to know why. I'm paying for it. I'm entitled to know why this is halal.
You just take it for granted.
They take it for granted. And this is one of the conceptual things that in Islam you don't ask question. Okay, that's not true. You don't ask question if I come to your house and you give me a meat curry. I'm not asking, I cannot ask you about where did you get this meat from, halal or not. But when you come to shop there, I'm paying for it. I'm entitled to ask whether this is halal or not. And I experimented it. And I had nothing but, what? Which planet did you come from? Kind of thing. Okay. Expression on the face. So I said, well, why should I trust you? Well, I trust my wholesaler who supplies me. So why should you trust me?
So hang on.
And I've got to add one point into it. As you said that it requires a big army and resources to monitor. I just a bit of disagree with that, because now we are here to just establish and ascertain the systems and procedures in place. So if the procedure is in place, if the system is in place, if the definition is definitive, then nobody would just move away from the standard. So in this way, you don't need to just carry out audits and all the time inspection, 24/7 inspection. You got to do audits, you got to monitor, but you don't need a full army of the people who just stand around 24/7 twiddling their thumb in the slaughterhouse or twiddling their thumb in the shop. Because when you go, people claim that we have got inspectors, but this is not simply possible. Even if you do that, the person who has to do some misdemeanor, he will do that 6 o'clock in the morning. He will do that misdemeanor at midnight where the auditor is sleeping. So this is not that we need a huge army. Like, for example, HMRC. It's a large organization, thousands of people work there, but still, they miss out on many inspections. They cannot control each and every business, can they? When was the last time you got inspected? When was the last time you were investigated for tax purposes? No, because this is not simply possible because of the fact that they just place a trust in you. Because whatever you will declare is according to the rules and regulations that you are given.
One more thing, just to add very briefly, is that you don't need an army, like Brother Saqib says. You don't need an army. You need to put that responsibility on the operators, starting from the slaughterhouse, right through the transport system, right through, these are all the chains through which things can happen, right through the cutting plants, and believe me, cutting plants is the worst place. If you think they are they're not manufacturing end product like burgers or sausage. They are actually maxing everything over there.
So pork and beef and everything, halal or otherwise, all in one place.
From different slaughterhouses as well. I'm a cutting plant sort of thing. Oh yes, so fine. Let me check. The important thing is to have the standards so detailed that if you are a processor, you are making hamburger or beef burger or whatever, I will come to you and says, I'm holding you responsible. Show me your test results. I want to see those test results before I give my signature on that halal certification. There is due diligence. You can actually tell me, I've done this. Recently, one of my processor was telling me they spent 135,000 pounds just to test them. And we are consuming this cost within and they still haven't raised the price of their meat or anything like that. What I'm saying to you, that responsibility is not on the likes of Saqib or
All,
me.
yeah,
You
not
know,
always
it
on
is
us.
on the people
always
who
on us.
produce them. Our
That's
job
true.
is to monitor what they do, how they do it, and we have to ask them to prove it to us that they did it.
I'm still confused though about how can the public really be involved in this? Bottom line is, if you go to a local halal butcher and you know him personally and he gives you a load of meat, how do you tell that? How does it member of the public know that meat is halal or not? I mean, then I suppose if they could start being nosy about the supplier, and then if they did some homework about where the supplier comes from.
Yeah.
Is that the procedure an ordinary person can
No,
do?
there is no procedure. This is where the commission comes in. So you, as a customer, go into any shop that you suspect that's not right, you can say to them, prove it to me, your meat is halal. Oh, I'm not interested in you, go away. You report to the commission, and the commission will descend on them.
Okay.
It's that central body we lack at the moment, which is absolutely crucial.
Okay, that's central.
And also our own people. For example, the butcher, as you just rightly started the debate. Butcher, right? Halal is not just halal food. Halal is that your intentions should be fair, your earnings should be fair, your earnings should be lawful, your earnings should be halal. Now, our people, Muslims, may start selling halal without investigating their suppliers. This is very common. This is very common, we find. We come across this every time, all the time.
Yeah, that's very true.
When we ask the distributor even, where are you getting it from? They say, no, we get it from an importer who is importing from 20 different places. Have you investigated whether they have got valid halal certificates? Not really. Do I need to? This is the answer. These are the sort of answers we get. So
Okay.
this is lies in between.
Let's broaden this out a little bit. You see, I'm concerned, you've raised the issue of what halal's definition is. What does halal mean? And I'm going to come back to the commission issue of how we as a community react to government and maybe come up with some solid solutions and some way of really analysing. And to be honest, if we got the government involved, they would have to involve in governmental inspectors. It'd have to be standards and environmental, health and environment would have to get involved.
Why not?
Yeah.
See, that would be a good thing from my point of view, so long as you had people, the health and environment people who were taught clearly what halal meant and what the definitions were. I'd probably trust the government more than I'd trust some of our own people, but that's another issue. but the issue is really, first of all, how do we get there? I'm going to come on to that question, but before I come on to solutions and really concentrate on them towards the end of the program, I want to try and get the public involved in what they think halal is. Please call us in. Give us your definitions of halal, please. We use the word halal every day. What does halal mean? Can somebody please call in? I'm sure there's ulama out there who will define this for me. I'm sure that there are perhaps people in the home. Do we know what halal is? It would be interesting to get some feedback. So the question is, what does halal mean? My own basic inquiry is, somebody once said to me, one way you can define it is to say that it's really all the things which are more harmful for you than they are good.
Okay.
That was some layperson's definition. I'm sure that the scholars will give us a much more detailed definition. But I'm talking about halal in the wider context that you're talking about. Because is it halal to buy eggs which are farmed from animals which are caged? Because the Prophet Muhammad clearly said, look after that animal. If you're going to even slaughter an animal, before you get to the slaughtering stage, it's imperative that you treat it well. Now we go for the cheapest chicken, the cheapest eggs, the cheapest. On that basis, is that even halal? Is it halal for us to even say that chicken is halal, even if you slaughtered it properly, but you didn't look after it well? We have a caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. Your comment or your question, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
I'm just calling about the halal range. The halal wording exactly is that the whole thing has to be halal. So your establishment where you are producing and everything like that, and where you're killing, that's got to be halal from starting. So majority of the establishments in this country that are made, they are made out of interest money. So they aren't correct in themselves, right? So how can they be halal from the starting? And the other word for the halal bird or halal kind of killing, right? The killing of the halal bird has to be done so that it's been read over, like as the script of the Quran, and it has to be specifically, the cut has to be exactly to the end of the the nerve. And majority of the poultry that's killed, and majority of the meat that's kind of killed in this country at this moment in time, they don't even cut it to the nerve because the head comes off, right? So it's incorrect, right? From starting, you've got to be halal to run a non-institution, right, without a non-interest company, right? Majority of the companies in this country are on interest country. You know what I mean? They buy the premises, it's on interest, or the people that they're dealing with, they're giving and giving, giving or taking interest. So, it goes like the starting of it, right? It isn't correct. So if the bunyad is not correct, the rest of it cannot be correct. So you can have the HMC, HFA, HLA, whatever you can have, right? But they are not educated, right, enough to go inside, right, to tell them that this is the correct way of doing the halal bird, right? Because the institution is not correct. It's been set up, majority of the institutions, either they've been rented or they've been set up into from banks which are run by interest.
We've got both your points. Thank you very much. If there's another point that you'd like to add, please do. But two legitimate points there and well put. But there was a slight slant at some of the organisations that perhaps you're not equipped to go in and be able to discern what is halal or not. Do you take ulama with you, or what's the system there?
What it is, when Halal Food Authority was established in 1994, we started working on carcasses, and we used to tag the meat that was slaughtered halal. But we were working at the shop, and then we were just certifying meat shops, butchery shops. Then this was a learning curve for us, and then we realized that exactly what the point you raised, that it has to be at the source, at the manufacturer, at the start, at the source. So we abolished that system, we stopped that practice, and then we moved on to certifying and inspecting the main source, that was abattoir or slaughterhouse. So we are talking about halal institutions, but I don't think that our people have got the right information and the basics how the organizations work. So we can tell you that when we receive an application form, right, this is not just by email they can get the certificate in a couple of hours time. This is not happening. What it is that when we receive an application form, we sign the necessary documentation with them. We signed a confidentiality agreement with them. We signed a contract with them, and a contract sets about all the terms and conditions that they must comply with. After that, we carry out an extensive audit. We send them the full questionnaire to fill in, and that questionnaire is reviewed at the time of audit by the auditor. And then that audit entails each and everything. We talk about the other point that was mentioned in the question was that halal is just the slaughterman does the right cut from the front without severing the spinal cord, right? I would say in a wider context, halal is not just that. Halal is animal welfare as well. Halal is hygiene as well. Halal definition is, by word it says permissible, but if you go further than that, there are three characteristics of halal. One is fit, wholesome, and pure for human consumption. Pure, wholesome, and fit for human consumption. That covers food safety, that covers hasab, that covers hygiene as well. But if we talk about traditional methods, yes, Alhamdulillah, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did very rightly. Everything was perfect at that time. But now we are here, then we raise this issue. If we are in other country, for example, if we are in Pakistan, if we are in Bangladesh, if we are in India, if we are in other countries, other third world countries maybe, for example, we don't raise this issue because we think that everything that is produced there, that is slaughtered there, is halal. Do we actually know how the animals are treated in those countries? Is it halal?
We're really getting onto the wider issue. I'm enjoying that fact that we're talking about halal in a wider context. So, tell me, what sort of injections, what sort of things are put into these animals when they're raising them? I mean, we talk about the slaughtering point, but when you're raising an animal, there are various antibiotics,
That's
there may be various other sort of medical things that do. Are those things that the animals are administered, are they things which are conducive to the concept of halal as defined by Saqib here?
Well, we couldn't say everything that goes into the animal during husbandry practices will be halal, because we need to look at the effects of these antibiotics on the human health. If you look at poultry, for instance, there are periods where antibiotic injection should be withdrawn during rearing. But if you look at the fact that most of the broilers these days mature within a short time, they are injected these antibiotics or other chemicals to make them grow faster. So if you do not follow the correct withdrawal periods and you keep injecting antibiotics and other chemicals into the animal, it will get to the point of slaughter where there will still be residual amounts of these chemicals in the animal. And consuming meat from these animals may be harmful, but it depends on how you define halal, whether it encompasses welfare and quality and food safety. But we should be defining halal to encompass all the, but we do not.
Okay.
In my opinion, I think it should all
You don't
take part of it.
you don't think we are up to that standard?
It should be, but we do not put a lot of emphasis on it.
Okay.
But that is what we should be looking
Let's
at.
swing the blame back to the consumer for a second. Let me think of Jack's halal chicken and chips in, I don't know, Hoe Street or wherever in the country. There are more chicken and chips outfits run by Muslims, I think, than possibly
For example,
even
Dixie, favorite chicken.
but then Kentucky Fried Chicken. To be honest with you, Muslims seem to be dominating that market for a start. Now, it does strike me that people go into these establishments. We all do it. We're going in there. We're buying what's the cheapest deal, looking for the cheapest deal, looking for the offers, and nobody actually is concerned about the welfare of that animal. Nobody's concerned about the procedures, and that's what the gentlemen have been beginning to allude to. So aren't we, the public, kind of guilty in the first place? We call ourselves Muslim, we're saying we're Muslims, we say we follow the halal method, but we're only interested in the ritual slaughter bit. We're not interested in the principle that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, set, which is that you do not
Look after that.
you are not cruel to the animals. I mean, isn't there haven't we got it a bit the wrong way around, Nizar?
We have. You're absolutely right. The whole halal definition. In fact, we start from the Quran, and the Quran tells you itself the definition. He said, the Quran, I'll quote to you in Surah Al-Ma'idah, in Surah Al-Baqarah. It says, they ask you, what is halal? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Quran, they ask you what is halal. Tell them what is tayyibban is halal. That means what is good, safe, pure, clean, wholesome. That is halal. Now we have drifted far away from cutting the throats of an animal.
Knife and neck. We all talk about knife and neck.
Knife, that's cutting the throat of an animal. But even then, there are people who will not believe in stunning and that sort of issue. But then if you don't, the animal look at each other being slaughtered right in front of you, each other.
So it's cruelty straight away.
Cruelty straight away, and yet that is certified as halal. In fact, you know, what that is because that is the where the Prophet ﷺ did it.
Now, let me pin this, Nizar. You've got middle class English people or working class English people who are actually going to Sainsbury's, going to the various supermarkets, and they're actively selecting. In fact, I know there was a campaign on television where there was a particular chef who drove this campaign. And actually, Middle England or Britain generally started shifting towards organic eggs, organic sort of chicken, because they became aware that it was wrong to buy chicken which was maltreated or which was pumped with rubbish. And they were concerned. Now that, to me, strikes me as a major thing. If people we say are non-Muslims or not even believers, and we often look in a way which is in a looking down snobbish way, we say, look, they're non-believers. But if non-believers are beginning to realize the value of an Islamic approach, And yet we as Muslims clutch to eating as much meat as we can, eating it at the cheapest price we can, and don't bother whatsoever in checking what the value is. What does that say about us as a community?
It says very clearly that we have drifted far away from the teaching of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You quoted the hadith earlier on, which is really mentioned in Sahih Muslim very clearly. He says that if you're going to slaughter an animal, you got to slaughter it well by putting an animal at ease, sharpening the knife and so on. These hadiths are not just put out. This hadith was put out to us in the 5th century, 6th century to us, before the rest of the world ever knew what animal welfare was. We were taught these animal welfare standards and issues long time ago. Question is, why have we actually ignored that? So when you talk about organic, I will subscribe fully to you. Let's have organic standard. And then bolt on to it the halal method of approach to organic.
Yeah.
Put the two things together, proper halal and organic. You got a perfect product there.
Now let me talk about our cousins, our Jewish brethren, cousins in faith. They have a concept called kosher, which is not far from the halal methodology, if not the same. I'm not sure exactly, but from what I understand, that they also have to do the ritual slaughter, the cutting.
Yeah.
The knife and cut
Yeah.
thing is exactly the same as ours, more or less. Now, the issue there is they have, generally there's an acknowledgement that most of what they do is pretty clean cut. The chicken they produce, I've heard of corn-fed chicken, which comes out in the kosher style, which is, very pure. They're very demanding, but the cost is exorbitant.
Yeah, and I can tell you why. In the kosher system, their first cardinal principle is to buy a very fit and healthy animal. The reason is that every time they slaughter an animal for eating, not for qurbani, for eating, every time it's got to be at a sacrificial level. In other words, the quality of the animal, live animal, has got to be superb. And you start from that point of view. Well, of course, the same thing applies to Islam, Udiyah, which is we're doing every time we slaughter an animal, exactly like that, but we have forgotten that we are doing, the only sacrifice we think about is when the Eid comes.
Yeah.
Then you go and look for perfect animal here, 2 horns and no teeth missing and so on. That's all we have occupied. The rest of the time we eat meat like hyenas, don't matter where that meat came from. Talk about the animal husbandry. They pump in growth hormones, excessive antibiotics and so on and so on. These things are not without result, without repercussions.
So a lot of illnesses.
They come through at that level. And then, as if that is not enough, I tell you, brother, that it's not only slaughterhouse that our meat comes from. Our meat comes from all the illegal sources as well, including condemned stuff which is in the slim slaughterhouse, which is condemned, and so on, which will be picked up for profit and labeled as halal.
Yeah, on the issue of healthy and fit animals too, if you look at the poultry industry, they've got a class of hens they call spent hens. Spent hens are normally reared for egg laying, and after up to 72 weeks, they are to be destroyed. But the industry have come across instances where people say there is a high demand for spent hens. Spent hens, if you look at catching spent hens, for instance, they've got a high incidence of osteoporosis, where during catching they break a lot of legs, which is a very huge welfare implication. So the religion is against all this, but where is the high demand coming from? I don't want to accuse any market, any industry, but these spent hens have got a lot of welfare. Their welfare is compromised, and if you look at the definition of halal properly, we should actually be avoiding those hens. But
So spent hens, how can you find out if it's a spent hen when you're buying?
It's hard to tell when you buy the hen. It's just, we always rely on the producer. But so if the producer doesn't know the real definition of halal, that's when the problem comes from. Because the spent hens are very cheap. They will just go, they may even get them for free.
अच्छा, साकिब भाई,
एक और मेरे जहन में बात आई थी. This is a clear message for the viewers as well. We receive so many emails and phone calls asking that such and such organization is supplying halal. How come you certify, or how come we can class them as halal because they are non-Muslims? This is the clear message for the viewers that to serve or supply halal, you don't need to be a Muslim. Only slaughtering must be done by a Muslim. And once slaughtered, it's all the hygiene and safety issues and all EU regulations must be complied with. And that's all it is required to supply a proper, validated, authentic halal food, legal, lawful halal product. Anybody could supply. If we receive a supply from Jack and Son, we raise a question mark that how come they supply halal? They can still supply halal, but if it is not certified, then obviously then you have got a right to raise a question. But if it is certified, and certified after investigation that he is not doing any sort of pork processing on site, if he's certified, then I do not think any reason to believe that they are not eligible to take part in this halal trade.
So for the ordinary person, let's make it clear. We've talked about the problems at the production end.
Yeah.
There are clear problems, and we've discussed some of the solutions. I am going to start turning to all the solutions for all of these points that we've raised, and I'd like your opinions on solutions and ways forward, recommendations for the public, as well as recommendations for the suppliers, and as well as recommendations perhaps for government. Let me start on the first one. The major point you raised, Nizar, was the issue of a joint halal commission. Has anybody tried this? And is anybody making this initiative?
No.
None?
Nobody is making. I raised this issue 5 years ago, and I tried to talk to people, etc. Tried to even get a petition signed so we could send it to all and sundry, including the umbrella bodies in the Muslim communities, etc., Council of Mosque and so on. But I got about 20 signatures, and then the rest no one will know. The commission is a utopia if we can achieve that.
Because then you could go to the government and say, look, here we've got our idea of what halal is, and we want you to implement legislation.
The commission will go to government and say, right, legislate for us. This is what we want, sort of thing. So it won't be controlled, unlike Australia, it won't be controlled by Australian government, as the British government. It will be controlled by the commission.
By the Muslim.
Authenticated, if you like, statutory, allowed, if you like,
well,
by legislation.
It is accrediting the accreditors.
Exactly. And then if I want to do certification, I certainly have to certify that. Now, for instance, if I'm running, as I do, the certification body, my next step to get really high reputation is to get my company accredited with UCAS.
Who are UCAS?
UCAS is the central body which actually perfects, as you do not become a member of that unless they go in every nook and cranny about you.
UK accreditation system.
Yeah. In other words, that is a controlling body for not only for halal, not only for meat, for everything.
Yeah.
We don't have anything like this. So you might as well today, and perhaps in future, all of us could actually make a plea to our Muslim leaders up and down the country.
Okay, so this is a practical step.
Yeah.
एक प्रैक्टिकल स्टेप्स आगे सब जो प्रपोज कर सकते हैं कि अपने अपने मसाजिद जो हैं अपनी अपनी इमाम बारगाहों में लोग जाएं और इस इशू को रेज़ करें और कहें कि ये एक इनिशिएटिव शुरू कर रहे हैं. Actually, and I'll personally say, well, we have Majlis Ulama, which is probably the primary mover in terms of certainly the Fiqh Jafri school of thought and followers in this country. We could certainly raise it with Maulana Ali Raza Rizvi, and I'm sure that he's a progressive alim. He comes here the organization comes here every Saturday. Maulana Marufi is here. Certainly what we'll do is we'll hook you up with them and to begin the campaign, to begin this process of really trying to bring a halal commission together. I think that they would be one source. But then we have to also go to maybe Regent's Park Mosque, go to sort of some of the other players.
If I can just, before you go to the Shia side of it, which is credible, I'm very delighted to hear that. I think this forum here, like here, you get some Muslim Sunni ulemas and Shia ulemas
to sit down.
And to sit down here, right in front, debate it in front of the public, let the public hear to what strength we are. And they say, look, are you all giving us commitment? Then you can lead the rope, if you like. I will take on the cudgels from now. Let us have a consensus among the all denomination that we want that central body to govern us.
Sure, and the public's in on the discussion, and HFA and some of the other agencies, maybe we can invite you guys as well. And I think that would be a practical way forward, rather than just moaning and saying we can't do this. Actually,
but that is a long way. It's a long way.
Well, I know that there are things like Minab, for instance, where Muslims have tried to come together. Minab is an organization of the mosques around the country, and they've been trying to construct a set of initiatives. It's terribly difficult.
Yes.
I mean, to get people from all the 5 major schools of thought, whether they're Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi. I mean, you gentlemen are all from the Sunnah wal Jamaat. I belong to ostensibly to the Jafri. We're all concerned as parents, as people who are living here consuming halal food. We would like our ulama to come out strongly on this, come out with a concise policy, and be able to then create a situation where government has to take it seriously.
That you are absolutely correct, and I propose that, and I think we should make a first step here as a pioneering effort. But I tell you, the road is paved with difficulties. It's not easy. I have made numerous plea to the government, and the last meeting we had with the DEFRA, with 5 certifiers being there, Halal Food Authority was there, and so on. And I told the officers there, please, you as government help us, because not in a million years we Muslims will ever get together to do it. That is my absolute belief, that it is so difficult. But let me jump on to the second solution, which I mentioned earlier on or alluded to, and that is that this cross-audit system, we have confidence in each other. I said to Saqib, you audit my place here. You know, this is what I'm certified, you audit my place.
So collaboration between the authorities.
Exactly.
Yes, but that's very important, because when we start saying that, Saqib, you are haram, you are not halal.
This is
the practice. We should respect each other, because we should respect
so
the interests of
एक
each other.
लेवल पे उलमा को भी जमा होना चाहिए, और दूसरे लेवल पे जो एजेंसीज आई हैं मैदान में उनको भी जमा होके एक मुकम्मल जो है वो एक
सबसे पहले तो हमें ये चीज़ ख़त्म करनी चाहिए कि भाई वो हराम है। अरे भाई मुसलमान है, पोक कुछ भी कर लेगा,
कोशिश तो सब कर रहे हैं।
मुसलमान बम भी फाड़ता है तो मुसलमान किसी गरीब को खाना भी खिलाता है। मुसलमान अच्छे काम भी करता है, बुरे काम भी करता है। एक काम नहीं करता जो कि निज़ार साहब ने पहले भी कहा, पोक नहीं खाता और ना ही खिलाएगा। पोक कोई किसी को क्यों खिलाएगा? कोई किसी को जानबूझ के हराम क्यों खिलाएगा? पैसे कमाने के बहुत सारे जरिए हैं। There are many ways to make money. Why a person would feed pork?
जाकिर साहब, ऑडियंस के लिए participatory program hai. I trust people are looking and listening and maybe learning a lot from you gentlemen. हमने एक वो अभी वो challenge, एक campaign, एक agenda पेश किया है. Please, you still have 10-15 minutes. Do ring us in with your thoughts on what our thinking is here. आपके कोई उलमा हैं या आपकी कोई organizations हैं, leader हज़रात हैं, they're welcome to phone in. We'll start a campaign on this. You will have a more regular update. Maybe monthly we'll come back to you on the issue of halal and see how this is progressing. And certainly the next program has to be a combination of a number of the authorities and a number of the ulama coming down around to discuss this idea of a halal commission, to review the whole issue of halal. What is halal? What isn't halal? What are the definitions? What are the concepts? What's the advice for the public? And I think it's not just a question of blaming people, blaming authorities, blaming the wholesalers, blaming. There's a blame also on ourselves, because we ourselves are clearly eating food which is not halal, and that's nothing to do with cutting its throat. It's actually to do with
Yeah.
the origins of it, and it's the welfare and the development. As a Muslim, you cannot honestly, with your hand on your heart, say all the meat that you're consuming is halal, because quite clearly, as animal husbandry is a real major problem. Pork DNA might be the odd one or two cases. It might be contaminated
It's
here
a
and
small
there
issue,
now.
very small issue.
The real issue seems to me here to be what is a Muslim's attitude towards animal welfare? How do we view animal welfare? That's the starting point
Yes,
of the halal
and then
issue.
there is a whole length of
The whole
food
we should,
safety and
we should
management.
broaden our views
Absolutely.
to include
Absolutely.
many foodstuffs into
Yeah.
that. We eat
Yeah, yeah.
chocolates, we eat desserts, many desserts we eat, chocolate spreads. We have got to understand what may go into it. So broaden our views on halal, not just stick on meat and knife and neck. Just broaden and see your daily diet, what actually you're consuming. If you are not sure, please drop a line to the customer services of the manufacturer. They would respond, or they would trigger their marketing team would be triggered, and then they would think about getting halal certification. They would think about getting their products halal certified. We receive many inquiries where manufacturer referred to us by saying, below is the inquiry from consumer, would you help us please, what is halal and all that. So we should continue that. People should investigate what they are consuming. Apart from meat, many other products they consume, they should know what they are eating.
Yeah, there is a whole range of key numbers or additives,
Exactly.
thousands of them. And some of them are actually coming from really horrible sources.
Yeah,
And
it's worth bothering
it's
about. It's worth bothering about.
When you look at the shop, you see lovely mouth-watering stuff there and so on. And our people actually, they think, oh, cake hai na, wo to theek hai.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact remains that we are blindly, almost like blind followers. We're saying, oh, it's okay for animals to be genetically engineered. It's okay for animals to be made to age quickly. Why? Because it's cheaper.
That's it.
It helps us to produce more of those animals, and it's cheap for us to consume. That's a serious question for Muslims to think about. Is our attitude towards animals one of absolute cruelty? And are we responsible for that? And do we have a conscience at all? I mean, the reality is some people will say, look, Muslims struggle to have a conscience about other Muslims. We've got a war in Syria going on. We've got people bombing the hell out of each other. But the truth is, at every stage, this is the issue, that we are so concerned about rituals and the ritual slaughter. And we are so Muslim when it comes. We want to show everybody how much more Muslim we are than the other chap because we get things the maximum halal way. Even the guy who picks up his chicken from a farm somewhere, I mean, to be honest, you don't know where that chicken arrived from and how that was done. The truth is, nobody can be clean of this.
Yeah.
We all bear a responsibility, if we say we're Muslims, to animal welfare, animal husbandry, and towards pulling up mainstream secular society. Otherwise, we have no right to look down on secular society and go around moralizing and turning our nose up at sort of people who we say are non-Muslims and look at them, look at their lifestyle. Look at our lifestyle.
That's it.
First thing is, let's check our own lifestyle. And attached to this, of course, is the issues around environmental compatibility, degradation, carbon emissions, things like this. How active are we as Muslims when it comes to the values?
In this global environment, we've got to see that now we have to believe whether those traditional methods are actually valid at this time, in this particular time of this technological advancement. When we see the traditional method is such that there is no science and technology was involved, so let's not do that. This was not the case. We should implement science and technology, and as long as they are subservient to Islamic law. For example, we said that stunning or whatever methods should not be implemented. I can ask you, when in traditional methods, who allowed you to start intensive farming? Which scholar started and which scholar accepted intensive farming in the first place? It just come and we accepted it, we took it, right? Who accepted that hanging of birds upside down was permissible for halal purposes? Who certified that? Which scholar actually said, yes, that was right? Nobody. We just took it. It came and then we just took it. Now, we are talking about stunning, we are talking about other things, but we forgot that we took many other technological advancements right from the beginning. We started going to Hajj and Umrah in 747 jets. Nobody bothered. Nobody said, okay, we should go on camel, right? So now, we used to walk, we used to ride on camels. Now we are having cars. I said to other person, like, look, You are driving car, you are using mobile phone here, and then you are talking about traditional methods. Then he said, no, I don't eat my car, I don't eat my phone. I said, okay, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used traditional methods. He did not consume cornflakes. Why do you do this? He did not have chocolates.
Well, this is again something we've been
traditional
arguing.
method. We got to move forward with life.
Muslim communities' ability to look through analogical reasoning is very weak. Being able to compare one situation and apply it to another seems to be a big vulnerability. But I think that's a discussion we might need to have with the ulama. They need to be here, and we need to open this issue of halal, both from a religious perspective and bring the ulama around the door, and Sunni and Shia ulama from all the corners. They all need to be involved. We need to bring, the request that I would have for yourselves is we need to try and bring all the food authorities together also,
Inshallah, yes.
and try to maybe open up the dialogue with them as well in future programs, and maybe at some stage come up with a charter, come up with a document which actually defines halal in the complete sense, and agree it with all the leading Muslim sort of, ulama and authorities in this country, and try to sort of make some sense out of this madness, because quite frankly, it is madness. I am going to be coming to the end of the show, but we've opened up the issue of halal. What is the definition of halal and haram? That in itself needs clarity. In the modern 21st century, what does it mean? What are the parameters? It's something we have to deal with every day. We could be, for all we know, we could be engineering cancerous growths within our children because we're taking up chicken, feeding chicken, which might have all sorts of dodgy antibiotics, goodness knows what. Are we even bothered about the kids that we're raising? If we say we're good parents and we're good members of the community and we look after our children, well, we should be concerned about the food we're feeding them, I guess. And I think that if the food has got the kind of horrific things that I'm thinking about here now, then we've got a major problem on our hands, and it's a campaign that certainly Elevate TV is going to maintain, and I hope that we can carry out some of the suggestions we had. Thank you very much, Nizar, for joining.
I can tell you that I'm going up and down the mosque, wherever they invite me, to give talks on these issues right in front of the public there.
Sure.
And I really tell them the food that you buy to eat, to start with, you say it's halal. By the time you put it in your mouth, it is already haram. Now I can prove it to you. It's with a short distance like that. Now, if that is the dilemma we are facing there,
This is your final word for the evening now?
For the evening. If this is the dilemma, we are in trouble. Really we are. And I put it in my lectures and talks and so on, PowerPoint presentation. You'll hear probably somewhere that I'm giving talks on these sort of things. Well, why not you come and then listen and then contribute?
Well, certainly let us know the next conference. You're doing it this week, I understand.
The next one is on next Friday, on the 23rd. Yes.
Where is it?
It's in Waltham Forest.
Friday 23rd, Waltham Forest. Is there a website or somewhere people...
No.
At the Town Hall in Waltham Forest.
7:30, yes.
7:30. Well, if you'd like to turn up and have more detailed discussion with Nizar, you're welcome to join that. Or call our line, and I'm sure our chaps will give you Nizar's details so you can contact him directly. So, last couple of comments from yourselves.
When we talked about halal definition is very broad, very wide. But if you wish to know specifically about halal definition in terms of meat, there are 3 mandatory requirements. आप लोगों को कंफ्यूज होने की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है हलाल डेफिनेशन के मामले में. 3 कुरानिक इंजंक्शंस हैं, 3 रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं. जानवर या परिंदा मरा हुआ ना हो, उसका खून निकल जाए सारा, flowing blood must be drained out, and Muslims should do the rendition by saying Bismillah Allahu Akbar. These are the requirements only, right? Only these are the requirements. But if you read the detailed standards, they are all standardization, they are all procedural. Quranic injunction is very clear, so please do not be confused about any other additional thing that people might say this and that. For example, chicken or animal should face Qibla, or these are preferred, but they are not mandatory. So please do not confuse yourself and then just try to establish. And may Allah give us all hidayah to seek and consume halal. Thank you.
Last word goes to Hussein.
Yeah, well, all I need to say is there is a requirement for the halal market to move from just slaughter to so that we can encompass other areas of animal production like welfare, meat quality, and food safety, which are very paramount in terms of the definition of halal. So we need to move away, not ignore the religious slaughter bit, but emphasize on it, but also take into cognizance the other aspects which are very, very important in terms of halal as well.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us. That's it from us tonight. We hope to see you again on the next edition of War of Words. And as far as the halal issue, well, this is just the beginning as far as our campaign is concerned. We will be re-raising this issue over and over again and fill you in on the progress. We'd like you to feedback. You know our Facebook details, you know our various other Twitter accounts. Do let us know what you think, and when the next program comes, I look forward to more people engaging around what they think on the halal food issue. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz.